Welcome back, friends. And today I'm in studio and I'm hanging out with a good friend of mine, Kathy Fielder. Kathy is an entrepreneur and she's also a lifestyle expert. And I brought her in here today to really talk about something, well, very interesting because, looking at the title that she has, you feel as though that's the thing that she was going to do like her whole life, right? You kind of figure with some people that they've been working on it their whole life. It's something they've always been doing. Was there ever anything else that was registering of something that Kathy was going to do for her career, for her lifetime? And that's why I really brought her in, because I want to talk about that, because I've had some things in my past that at one point in time I really, really wanted to pursue, and everything was walking that way for me to pursue that. And I ended up switching journeys and switching paths. There was a little bit of time where there was regret. There was a little bit of time where there was a lot of uncertainty. There was a lot of time where there was a lot of uncertainty. And it took me a while to jump that hump and to really embrace the life that I have now. And so, Kathy, I'm so glad to have you today in the studio.
Glad to be here. Thank you.
So, from my perspective and from other people's perspectives, it seems like you've been doing this for a lifetime. This has been your direction. Was there any other directions that you were going at one point in time that was kind of a big deal?
No, absolutely. I think while it may seem that I have been this person for forever, it really is a relatively new phase in my life, a little over a decade, right? So, and I actually started my manufacturing company, not on a whim, but I broke my back and decided I needed a platform that I could duplicate myself in the designs that I was doing. And so that's basically how my manufacturing arm was born. Before that, though, I was actually a performer.
Really?
Yeah. No, I did a lot of musical performances and dance with a ballet company. And so that really was where my true passion lied in late teens and early 20s, is I wanted to pursue a performance career. So definitely not in the same realm by any means. But, I think it's one of those things that life kind of changes and you have to change with it. And, we don't necessarily decide to move forward on something. You said you had something you were really passionate about that, and I think sometimes there are regrets, right? And you think, well, what if? But then you also have to look at the fact of where you are now and the avenues that you've taken have gotten you there, and be grateful and thankful and, and enjoy them and have a good time with them.
I see what you're saying. I think there's a lot of folks out there probably watching this video. We're in sports. That's a big thing. When you're in sports and you're successful in sports, and then a health issue happens, or things have to change, and you saw the value and you saw your talent, and then all of a sudden things go to a complete stop and you're having to reinvent yourself.
Absolutely.
And I kind of feel like I was there at a moment in time where everything was going a certain way. And everything was destined to go that way. And I'll just give a little bit of backstory. I was one of the top debaters in the country. And I started debating back in middle school, and I debated all through high school. And I wanted to go and I wanted to be in Congress. I wanted to be in politics. And so there was this whole road that I was going down, and I made some changes at the last minute that has put me where I am now. But there was some time there because I had worked so hard for those things that I felt almost out of balance. I felt like I had almost bamboozled myself, basically. And I think there's a lot of folks out there watching that said, you know what, I've been in that same place too, and I had to reinvent myself or I had to change direction. And you were talking right before we started this video, you were saying that you were actually a musician, and you pretty much stopped that to move into what you're doing now. But how did that work?
Well, actually, so I sang and traveled a lot and won awards singing, and kind of thought that was the direction I was going to go, and stopped doing that in order to dance with a ballet company. And I thought, at the time, well, I'm younger, and ballet you kind of do at a younger age, if you're really going to pursue it and do it well. And it's just that kind of time frame in your life. And so I thought, well, I can sing anytime. And I really want to pursue the dance side of things, A couple years later, I'm sitting watching the Super Bowl, and someone that, I'm dating says to me, that could have been you with the halftime performer. And I thought, I actually burst into tears. And I thought, wow, what did I give up? And so I think it's one of those things. But, what you were saying about you're kind of left in limbo and you have regrets and you think, gosh, how do I move forward? Where do I move forward? What do I move forward with? This was my passion, or someone who has it taken away from them, which I think is a totally different. Mine was a conscious decision to move in a different direction. When you have somebody that actually has an injury that prohibits them from being able to do their passion, that's a very different environment. I think their emotion comes from that I didn't necessarily have. That's more, I would say, even anger,
Right.
and anger at circumstances versus me. Mine was probably like a little bit of regret or anger at myself for the decisions I've made. But at the end of the day, I think it's one of those things where I can only I can only equip myself with the right information at the time and make the decision that I feel is right and move forward with that. And so, I think it's one of those things where you have to decide really, well, first of all, you really have to know yourself and know what you want out of life, which, is kind of hard to do sometimes, and it's a little bit scary sometimes.
I don't even know if some of us really know exactly what we want out of life. I don't really know if there's ever an age that you get there. I think most
I think
of
it's
us
a
are in
constant
limbo.
journey. I absolutely 100% believe that. I think that you are continually striving and continually like refining and figuring out where you want to go, where you want to be, And so like 3 years ago, my company moved in the direction of really putting me as the brand head of Kathy Fielder Design Lifestyle versus just, manufacturing collections. I'm now, the public figure brand head of that company, right? And so it's one of those things where I've had to kind of figure out, what does that mean for me? Right? Who is Kathy Fielder, and what is it that I want to present to the my audience, those sorts of things. And so I think it's a constant change. One of the principles of success is that it's a consistent change, right? It's fielding all the little challenges and all, the things that come your way, as well as understanding the goals and where you want to be and utilizing all those aspects in order to get to where you want to go. And I think it's really important to understand that you're never going to get to where you want to go unless you have a goal set and you have a vision of where you want to be. It's like having, now that we have this app, maps, so that you can just pull up. Well, I have to be able to put that destination into that app in order to get there, for Siri to tell me where I need to be, right? Mm-hmm. Same thing in life. It's not this ethereal pie in the sky thing. If you know that you want to be here, then you have to visualize that and come up with the directions in order to get to that place.
That makes sense. I think a lot of times, though, too, we have a tendency of thinking what could have, should have, would have. Absolutely. And depending on what we think we would have been. And to me, glimpsing into the future, I don't have a crystal ball here in the studio or in my office. And I don't know what the future really does hold. And I think that when we place ourselves in a future position, we're never happy with where the present moment is, and I think that those regrets or those feelings of, like, even with a sports player that was like torn apart from their career, or somebody that went a different direction, or maybe somebody was taking care of a family member who was sick and had to let go of whatever career that was. I think we can all think about what could have happened, but I also wonder, is there a deeper thing at play here where isn't there something maybe better that we can attain? And also the story of not going that direction and having everything unicorns and rainbows, does that actually facilitate a better understanding of who we are as an individual and bring that in to be more empathetic and understanding of other people?
Well, I do think that real life situations and circumstances make us more real, right? At 20 years old, I was very idealistic and unicorns and rainbows and, very driven, and this was my goal and I'm going to get there. And, that was who I was, right? Now I actually am so much happier with who I am. And I'm not sure that it would have been the right path for me. I think I could have made some really poor decisions. I wouldn't have my family and my kids, which are the most important thing in my life. They give me so much value and make me so much better of a person. That I don't think I could have ever even come close to having attained without them. I want to be more for them so that I'm a good example, so that they become successful, well-adjusted, happy adults, right? And so I think, there's no value in regret. I mean, at the end of the day, it does nothing to enhance your life in any way, form or fashion. It doesn't enhance the people's lives around you. We can't be available to really engage in people's lives around us and really enjoy them unless we are living presently in the moment and not in the past or where the future may have been. And it's so important to understand that. And so, I think it's also really important to understand that the present is a gift. What was that in Kung Fu Panda?
I didn't see that.
Well, it's so good. It's so worth seeing, and it's really funny. And Jack Black's, like the panda, right? and he's, of course, incredibly funny. But, he talks about one of his masters that's training him. The present is a gift. Future's nothing. You can't control the future, and you can't do anything about the past, but your present is your gift. And so you have to treat it like that. It's special, and really live in it and enjoy every second of it, because life is short. It's way short. And so it really is a gift that we get to be here right now having this conversation, and figuring out what our regrets are and how we move past them and how we live our true life.
Oh, I like that. Yeah. That was good.
Thank you.
And I like what you said about the present moment, and you're right, because I didn't realize when I was younger, and I still have to remind myself, and I think many of us have to. Yeah. I haven't perfected this, by the way, is that when we go into the future or we go into the past, we devalue the present moment, and we become a sideline spectator in our own life, right? So we become that person sitting in the bleachers watching other people play the game of life while we're over there commentary about how we didn't do this or how this didn't happen, or life has been passing me by, or all this stuff, and it begins to basically tarnish and ruin what we do have. And so, in these videos, I always like to provide solution. I do like to think about things and ponder things, but solution is always a good thing. Absolutely. And so first thing, yes, focusing on, hey, am I being mindful? Am I in the present moment? How do I do that? Well, I'm aware of when I go into the past or the future. And how are you aware of that? Well, the first thing you can be aware of is your mind. What are the thoughts in your mind at that moment? Because what happens is we trigger into something, usually a negative or devaluation of our life, right? We think about, oh, well, I haven't done this or whatever that is. And what happens then? It's the trigger point to go back into the past or what was ever being successful then, or what had screwed up what you feel like in your life, or going into the future of what you wished your life had been. That's the trigger. Okay, so we need to stop what that is right there, and we need to get back into the now. And it takes work. I mean, it takes constant work. It's practice. It's like going to the gym.
It's a habit. And, it's a continual habit. And it's very hard to build a good habit. It's really easy to break a good habit, right? Everybody knows that. And so you go to the gym all up to the holidays, so you're in like the best shape, and then you don't go for 2 weeks, and guess what? January comes and you're not back into the gym, right? And then you're at spring break going, oh my gosh, now it's bathing season, I didn't get back to, that sort of thing. And so I think it's one of those things where you really do have to realize it's a habit. It's a conscious choice. It's not about goody feelings and this, that, or the other. It's how I feel today. This is a choice. Happiness is a choice. Honestly, you can choose to be happy. I know in our culture, we're taught that you are happy because of your feelings and all of these things, but actually you can choose to be happy, and you can make a conscious effort to make happy thoughts a part of your daily life. And eventually that habit will manifest itself, even when you're not realizing it. And so it's a conscious choice to be the best you, to be very engaged in the present moment, and know that you are where you're supposed to be. You are where you're supposed to be. Believe it or not, we're all where we are supposed to be. Whether that, and some people may be sitting there saying, oh my goodness, I wasn't supposed to be abused or this or that. And that's a terrible thing. It really is. But great things can come out of some of these issues that we're all dealing with. And we really can make ourselves better. And I think at the end of that, when you give yourself the courage to address it and move forward through it, I think that you come out happier and more fulfilled on the other side. And there's so much more basis to you as a person when you realize where you come from and where you want to go, and to those around you, the gifts that you can give them.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. And I like how you said choose to be happy. And I agree with you. A lot of times in society today, I think that there's a lot of pills being taken because people think if I just take this pill, the happiness quotient will open up in my life and I'll finally feel this happiness thing that people have been talking about. But one caveat is that you're right, it's a choice. But remember, somebody else can't choose it for you. And so oftentimes we find other people in our life to make us happy. And one of the biggest problems we have with that is that when somebody makes us happy in our life, what happens when they leave? Okay, so we've got to be able to choose to be happy in our own life. And I know sometimes in certain circumstances it's very difficult. And there's challenges and there's choices that have to be made, whether it's leaving an abusive marriage, whether it's, working to decide to quit doing alcohol or drugs that have become an addiction and actually taking the time to go into a facility or to go through the 12-step program or whatever that looks like. But there's a lot of work I found, but once you go through that hurdle and the next hurdle and the next hurdle, as you do it, you begin to attain power. You get out of the victim mentality. And then the other thing is that you begin to feel happy. But it's because of doing what's right for you. But we all have to take responsibility for our individual lives.
And happiness. I 100% agree with that. And that's a great point. I mean, everything you just said is absolutely a wonderful point. We really do have to take ownership, though. At the end of the day, we have a lot of outside influences. We have Instagram feeds that are, can be depressing, right? We compare ourselves. We look at all these things and understanding that at the end of the day, there are choices and we really do have to put ourselves together and do what's best for us. And, that's not being selfish. That's, I think, sometimes a mentality like doing what's best for me. When you are the best you can be, you are so much more able to empower those around you. It takes so much more courage to address, my daughter and I, Isabella, we just went to Guatemala recently and redid an orphanage in Guatemala. And I came away, it was an extraordinary experience, and it always makes me emotional, but I came away thinking it takes so much more courage to live in poverty than it does to live, in Dallas, in the city of Dallas, and do all the stuff that we do and drive our nice cars and, go home to our very lovely beds that are, very soft and comfortable. There's so much more courage it takes to watch someone who literally has nothing but can still smile and give you a hug, And so I think they're choosing to be happy in extraordinary circumstances that you and I can't even fathom. And so it's their decision to go, you know what, this is what I've got right now, and I'm going to make the best out of it. But outside of that, I'm even going to be smiling and happy and hug on people and tell them thank you for being with me and work really hard at being the best person I can be in that situation. And so I think it's really important to remember that, perspective of what your life really is, but also to address the fact that it's your choice. And that actually doesn't, it should make you feel empowered. Because it is your choice. You get to control your destiny. You don't have to depend on anyone around you, someone that you decide that you want to date and you just love them or get married and how can I live without them? You live with you first, and then you add in all the extra, and that's just icing on the cake. So
powerful stuff. Kathy, I'm so glad you got to come in the studio today.
I've really enjoyed it. Yeah, it's been great.
Awesome.
Thank you. Yes, thank you.
For all you out there, I love you and I care about you, and that's why, we make these videos. But, one last thought is just do something today. Move it forward. Do something, one thing today that helps you, whether it's understanding your talents, whether it's taking a class, like signing up for something that you need to do, just doing that one thing.
Baby steps.
Baby steps.
Even if it's just you look in the mirror and you say, I matter, or I'm important, or I believe in me. There's a real power in actually looking at yourself in the eyes. I mean, if you ever think about it, like sitting there looking in someone's eyes, someone always it's hard to do it. I just filmed a segment and I had to sit and stare in someone's eyes, and it's hard to do. Look at yourself in the mirror, sit there and say, you know what? I love myself. And you may laugh actually and go, that I don't. But at the end of the day, you just keep saying things over and over and over again, and eventually it will sink in. And, we were talking a little bit earlier, why not? If it's not working this way, then can it really hurt to try? I mean,
Why
the
not
worst that
try
can
the
happen is you
alternative?
can sit there and laugh at yourself and be like, oh my God, right?
Yeah.
But at least you smiled. So
smiled.
there you go. Yeah.
It's funny. I feel like you should sell my book. Yeah. In the 10-day challenge, there's actually a part of a chapter about actually looking in the mirror and doing exactly what she's talking about. And it's a very powerful thing to do. And it does change the mode of operandi. And I've had conversations about, sometimes we got to get naked, in front of the mirror and say, hey, I love myself. I love everything
Absolutely.
about myself, no matter what. And quit devaluing yourself. And if that's one thing you do today, do it. Changing maybe healthy diet, maybe getting on the road to some sort of recovery. Whatever it is, start off and keep building on that. I hope that this video has helped in some way, and if you haven't already subscribed to the channel, please do, and add some of your comments. Have you changed pathways in your life and went through some regret and came out the other side? What was that like? I want to hear from you, as well as what are some of the things that you do to feel better about yourself and to actually work to increase your self-esteem and self-worth. And by the way, please share this with your family and friends, and in the meantime, continue to live your true life.